Charge is of usually in two states. Okay, it can be discrete in nature, it can be continuous. So for example, if you have a point charge, you can consider it to be a discrete charge, okay, because it is at this particular location only. But there can be continuous charge distribution as well. For example, there can be line charges, surface charges, or volume charges. So let's take the examples. So let's say you have this line, okay, you have a linear element on which there is a lot of charge. So in this case, you can consider this to be a continuous charge distribution, and this is the example of a line charge. Then we can have a charge on the surface as well, which is again a continuous charge distribution because it is distributed all over the surface. And then we can have a charge distribution over the entire volume. Okay, let's say this is a cube or a sphere, and in this entire volume the charge is there. So for understanding, or for using the concept of continuous charge distribution, we need to understand the concept of charge density. Charge density can be of three types, as discussed also. There can be linear charge density, in which we take the charge per unit length. This is the linear charge density. In surface charge density, we take the charge per unit area, and in the volume charge density, we take the charge per unit volume. So when we discuss about line charge, we will talk about the linear charge density. It is represented by lambda. So charge per unit length, linear charge density. When we will talk about surface charges, then surface charge density will be used, charge upon area. It is represented by sigma. And when we will be talking about volume charges, then volume charge density will be used, in which rho is the symbol. Volume charge density symbol is rho. So the units are quite simple as well. Linear charge density, this is coulomb, this is meter. Okay, so coulomb per meter. Surface charge density, coulomb per meter square, and volume charge density, coulomb upon meter square, coulomb per meter square. So the charges can be classified into discrete or continuous types. Discrete is like, for example, point charge. Continuous charges are like line charge, surface charge, volume charge, etc. So after the study of electrostatic force, we can now move on to the concept of a field. Okay, so what is the concept of a field? So if you notice that let's say you want to move an object. Let's say you want to move this bottle with your hand. So how will you move it? You will touch this bottle and bottle with your fingers, and then you will move this bottle. So in order to move this bottle, you need to touch the bottle with your fingers. It is not like that you can in the air you can do some gestures and it will move by itself. Okay, so in order to move this bottle, you need to touch the bottle with your finger. So here this type of force is called contact force, in which the force is applied by some contact. But let's take the example of a magnet. So when we have two magnets, they attract or repel each other, but they do not need to be in contact in order to do so. They can apply force without getting in contact with each other. Okay, so this type of force is called a non-contact force. For example, gravitational force is a non-contact force. Let's say you have this earth. So is it so that the apple falls when the earth comes and grabs the apple, it touches the apple? No, the apple and earth has a lot of distance between them, but still the apple falls towards the earth. So gravity is a non-contact force. Similarly, electrostatic force that we are discussing in this chapter, it is a non-contact force. Magnetic field, magnetic force is a non-contact force. So the people or the scientists started thinking that how is this possible? How does this magnet know that there is another magnet here without any contact? So in order to understand this concept, there was one of the greatest English physicists, Michael Faraday. He introduced the concept of field in approximately 1850s. Okay, so what is the concept of a field? So according to Michael Faraday, what happens is that let's take the example of a magnet. So what happens is that, let's say we have this magnet. Okay, this magnet. Now what happens is that this magnet has a region around it, invisible region around it, in which the magnet has the invisible field which tells which gives the information of this magnet, presence of this magnet, to the other magnet which might come in this region. Okay, so how does this magnet know that there is this magnet? So this magnet has a field around it, and once this magnet comes in this field, it will automatically know that yeah, there is one magnet here, and this magnet can feel the field of another magnet. So what is a field? Field is an invisible region in which the effect of a magnet or a mass or any electric charge can be felt. For example, if you want to talk about the electric field, so in that case we will say that what is electric field? Electric field is an invisible region in which the influence of any electric charge can be felt. If another charge comes into that field, then it feels its force. Now electric field is invisible. Because of that, it is very difficult to understand this in the real world. Okay, let's say you have a magnet, then it will be very difficult for you to understand the concept of field, because there is no you cannot see the field around the magnet. So in order to describe the field, we use some electric field lines. So electric field lines are a way to represent the invisible electric fields. Okay, similarly magnetic field lines will be used for magnetic fields, gravitational field lines will be used for gravitational fields. So invisible region in which the force of one charge can be applied on the other charge. Now electric field lines are the way to represent the invisible electric field, and the electric field lines have some properties that we have defined. Okay, this standard is described by the scientists. It is not like that in nature it is so. We have in order to understand, in order to visualize, we have defined all these things. So electric field lines are the way to represent the invisible electric field. So first thing that we have decided, that we will consider that the electric field lines will exit from the positive charge and it will enter the negative charge. So the first thing that you need to remember is electric field lines will exit from the positive charge and it will enter in the negative charge. Again repeating, this is the standard which the humans have started. It is not that in nature it happens so. Then second thing is electric field lines, if you want to find the direction at any point. Okay, let's say you want to find the direction of electric field line at this point. So how can you find the direction of field lines here? So just draw the tangent at this point. So what is a tangent? Tangent is any line which touches, let's say, the curve on externally on only one point. Okay, so draw the tangent and you can find the direction at that point. Now why do I have put the arrow like this? Because it is going from positive to negative. Okay, so this tangent tells us about the direction. For example, at this point direction is like this. Now the electric field lines can never intersect each other. Two electric field lines can never intersect each other. Why? Because let's say if the electric field lines intersect with each other, then at the same point there can be two tangents. Okay, one tangent is here, one tangent is here. So at the same point there can be two directions. So how is it possible? Is it possible that you can move in the forward direction and in the backward direction at the same time? No, you can only move in a particular direction. So if electric field lines intersect each other, then they will have multiple directions, which is not possible. So because of that, we say that the electric field lines can never intersect each other. So they will always be away from each other. Now the fourth point is the density of the electric field lines tells us about the strength of the electric field. If the electric field lines are very close, let's say in this region the electric fields are very close together. So here the electric field is strong. Here the electric field lines are very far away. So here the electric field is weak. Here again the electric field lines are close. So here the strength is more. So the electric field line density tells us about the strength of the electric fields. If the density is more, electric field intensity is more. If the density is less, then the strength of the electric field is less. Next, electric field lines are open curves. That means they always start from positive and end at the negative, no matter what. Okay, it is not like that a positive charge go from negative and then from negative the electric field lines again come back to the positive. No, always the electric field lines will always go from positive to negative charge. Because of that we say that it is open. Okay, electric field lines are open curves. Whereas if you will study about magnetism, you will see that the magnetic field lines are closed curve, because outside they go from north to south, and inside they go from south to north, so they make a complete circle. Okay, so magnetic field lines are actually closed curves. So it will come when we discuss magnetic fields. So ultimately electric field is the invisible region in which the influence of one charge can be felt by another charge, and electric field lines are the way to represent invisible electric fields. Now the third thing is electric field intensity. So in order to understand the strength of any electric field, we use this term E. Okay, so electric field intensity tells us about the strength of the electric field, tells us about the force that can be applied by the charge. So more the electric field strength, more will be the electric field intensity. So now electric field intensity will be obtained for different types of shapes. Okay, for a single point charge, for a dipole, for a line charge, surface charge, volume charge, and in them also we will have multiple types of volume or surface charges. So first we will start the discussion of the electric field line due to electric field intensity due to point charge. Then we will move on to dipole, and then after that in the next part we will go to the other types of charges and their electric field intensity. So first, what about the electric field intensity of a single point charge? So again it was observed that the let's say we have this charge q and we want to find the strength of the electric field of this charge q. So obviously in order to feel the electric field of this charge, we want another charge. Okay, the electric field can only be felt by another charge. Okay, so this charge which is used for experiencing the electric field of the main charge is called the test charge. Okay, this is the test charge. So the important thing is that this test charge must have a magnitude very small as compared to the source charge whose intensity we need to find. So for example, if let's say the test charge is of 1 coulomb, then let's say the the source charge is of 1 coulomb. So let's say the test charge can be 0.01 coulomb, quite small as compared to the source charge. Let's say if the source charge is 1000 coulomb, then the test charge can be 1 coulomb, quite small as compared to 1000 coulomb. If test charge is 10,000 coulomb, then it might be 100 coulomb. So the test charge must be very small relative to the source charge whose intensity we want to find. So it was observed that the electric field by the source charge is proportional to the value of this source charge. If the charge is more, electric field intensity is more. And also it was also dependent on the distance. So if the distance between source charge and test charge increases, then the intensity decrease. Okay, it is quite simple, you have experienced it as well. When you are away from the charge, the force is less, the field is less, but it varies by 1 by r square. Okay, so if the distance increase by 4 times, then the electric field will reduce by 16 times. Okay, 4 square is 16. So ultimately electric field is proportional to q upon r square. Now again similar to the Coulomb's law, when we want to find the equal relation, if we want to find an equation, so that there will be this constant. If there is a medium, we will use 1 upon 4 pi epsilon, and if there is vacuum or air, we will use 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught. Same concept as discussed in the Coulomb's law. Now the SI unit of electric field is Newton per Coulomb. How it can be found out like this. Let's say we know that force between the source charge and test charge will be q into q naught upon r square. So now we know that this kq upon r square is the electric field due to q. So it can be replaced by the electric field due to q. So the electric force between test charge and source charge q can be written like this as well, or electric field due to source charge q can be force per unit test charge. So from here the unit of electric field can be found as Newton per Coulomb. Newton per Coulomb. So the important thing to note is that electric field of Q is independent of test charge value. If you look at this formula, you might say that the electric field of Q depends on Q naught. It is not the case, because once you put the value of F, you will again get the value, this value. Okay, so here you can clearly say that the electric field does not depend on test charge Q naught. It is obvious because we are finding the electric field of source charge Q. So how will the electric field of Q depend on any other charge? Okay, it's like saying that the smell of apple depends on mango. They are quite independent of each other. Okay, so the electric field of Q does not depend on the test charges value. So ultimately the electric field of a point charge is kq by r square. So let's again revise what is the physical significance of electric field. So whenever we have any non-contact force, then we require the concept of invisible electric fields. Electric fields carry the information about the charge and transmit it to other charges. For example, let's say we have this charge here. So electric field carries the information that yeah, here is one positive charge and you can apply force on that. So electric field is the carrier of the information about the charge, regarding the charge. So we have this charge here, we have this charge here. So between them there will be electric field which will carry the information, which will help the force to be applied between these two charges. So this is the physical significance of electric field. Now just like the superposition can be used in order to find the force between multiple charges, we can also find the electric field of multiple, net electric field due to multiple charges. So let's say we have this point P, and on this point P we want to find the electric field intensity due to Q1, due to Q2, due to Q3 and due to Q4. So it can be found out by the individual vector addition of the electric fields. So electric field of Q1 on P is E1, Q2 on P is E2 and so on. So if you in order to find the net electric field on P, you can use the vector addition, and this principle is again, you know, it is called the principle of superposition. So electric field also follow the principle of superposition. Now let's discuss about good conductors and bad conductors. So what are good conductors? Good conductors are the materials which allow the electric field to pass through them. They allow the electric field to flow through them, the current to flow through them. So what are good conductors? Good conductors have free electrons present in them at room temperature. So most of the metals are good conductors, because in metals, the metals have the tendency to donate the electrons. Okay, so most of the metals easily donate the electron. In that case, the electron becomes free and it can easily flow in the wire. So good conductors are the materials in which the electrons are free to move and they allow the electric charge to flow. But in bad conductors, the electrons are not free. There are not many free electrons, and the electrons are not free because they are mostly non-metal. Okay, most of the non-metals are bad conductor, and the property of non-metals is that they accept the electron, they want more electrons, so they do not allow the electrons to go away from the atom. So it is very difficult for the electrons to become free. So in bad conductors, the free electrons are very less, and they do not allow the charge or electric field to easily flow through them. So these are good and bad conductors. From the next part we will discuss about the potential.